Welcome to B2B Tech Mindset, where we explore how technology drives business success. Join us as we discuss the latest software solutions, trends, and strategies that can help you stay ahead of the curve. Develop a tech mindset and learn how to leverage technology for growth in your organization.
Welcome back to a new episode of the B2B Tech Mindset podcast, in which we discuss, B2B topics. And today we want to talk about remote work, because these days remote work is everywhere. Everyone is thinking about how implemented, or people have this strong desire of working remote or not. Some people think it's distracting or does not help. Let me formulate that way. Does not help collaboration or hinders collaboration in an organization, while some other people think that boosts productivity, because you have the chance of multitasking, hold more meetings more often, or see the LinkedIn profile of the person who you are talking to. So we want to talk today a little bit about it, because it's an important day. It's an important topic in the B2B world, or in the business world in general. And so, what are your experiences? What is your feeling about remote work?
Well, let's say that it actually came into the mainstream media and the news during the pandemic, right? So when Corona started, lockdown, you cannot work from work, you cannot go to work. So companies started scrapping ways to work remotely. Nevertheless, there was always other companies before that they were working remotely all the time, like they were native remote companies, let's say like that. I did work in the past for such a company. We were a small team and we were all distributed. When we were meeting like every 2 months for 2 days or 1 day. And that was all the on-site meeting that I have with my colleagues. My personal preference, 100% remote is not for me. So it's definitely not for me. It was a very hard time, keeping the motivation up was a very hard time for me. This is just my preference. Having a mix of a couple days in the office, a couple days remote, that will be my preferred way. How are you?
Well, I've been working remote for the last almost 3 years now. And I must say, well, the first advantage that I see is I save the commute time. To me, will be around 1.5 hours every single day. That's an important amount of time to save for a day, 1 hour. And that's number one. Number two for me is that I equipped my home workstation after we got this signal. Work is going to happen remotely. I have really work conditions here that it's very hard to reproduce if I'll be in the office. I have a bigger display. I have for the first time in my life ever, I have better tech here than I would have at the office. And I customized the whole thing to my liking. So I like my chair better. I have, my table, I like it better. I have everything is fitted the way I like it, the colors, everything. And besides that, there is also the factor of that I can really focus. There are less interruptions. And we have, which is a topic that we were discussing offline before we began this conversation. We have a culture of remote work. And I think when there is a culture, and the culture implies that there are procedures, there are methods, there are protocols, people agree on things, how to work remotely. If someone posts a message, you give acknowledgement that, yes, I hear your message. And it's expected to see an acknowledgement. There is an information architecture plan where people know this is how these wikis or OneNotes or whatever thing you used for your notes, how the information is organized. So if people agree in those things and you use all the technology that is at your disposal, I think it's possible to have a successful remote work environment. In my case, I think it's very successful. I really think I've boosted my productivity dramatically. But I think that if teams or companies have not put some thought into remote work, and as many companies, as you mentioned at the beginning, if people jump into remote work because of COVID, not because it was part of the plan, but because it was a situation that they found themselves in, and finally they can get out of that situation and go back to the office, and then go back to the office feels for them like go back to normal, and they don't have the intention or the will to really extract the most out of remote work, then probably remote work is going to be looked at like a hindrance, like a problem, instead of something that can empower you more. That's my opinion. For me, I just love remote work.
Yeah.
But still I go every other week or so, or perhaps sometimes I go every single week to the office. So it happens sometimes, but it's not something that people yearn or need, because also my team is distributed remotely. So it's not that, anyways, we are not going to meet everyone at the office.
I see. Well, in my case, my team is also totally distributed. It's like all my colleagues are all over the world. So when I go to the office is to meet my other colleagues that I don't work directly. So when it's like to socialize, basically, you drink a coffee with this one, you go to lunch with the other one, then you get a beer after work with three of them. So for me, it's more socializing that actually working. It's like getting the latest news of what they are working, what are the latest rumors, or all the gossiping that happen in the office as well. So for me, it's that part which is missing when you are working remote. You were mentioning like the method of working remote. Yeah, that is pretty important. Like if you don't have like the right meetings, or the people don't get the information right away, or they are part of the teams or team members that don't get any information at all, or they don't know what to do or when to do it, or when it is expected to do, they don't get information, basically. That is a bad situation. One thing that we got very good at it after I was working partly remote before, but we weren't that good at it. It's like meetings, like deciding stuff in meetings. After COVID hit, we do like the usual meeting for us is 25 minutes. Like that's the usual. You put a meeting to discuss something, a couple of topics, 25 minutes. Usually is like after 20 minutes, you're done with when all the decisions were taken. At least in like 90% of the meeting, all the decisions were taken. When if you want to discuss only one topic, it's like 15 minutes meeting. So rarely I have like 1 hour meeting. So that is something that we all in my environment got very good at it. It's like you start, you have like 3 minutes small talk as usual. People arrive like 1 minute later or whatever. 3 minutes small talk, and then someone say, "Okay, let's get to the topic," and we go by the agenda usually, and then we take the decisions. So, other thing that I do now, parallel to that, is like I have like one-to-one meetings with my team when we don't discuss much about work, which is just chit-chatting, usual conversation, because we are not meeting in person anytime sooner. That's why I find it important to like get a little more trust in the team.
Yeah, I think that there are these cultural aspects to it. It's just you have to create the environment. and the protocols or the behaviors that help people to be productive in a remote environment. And again, I think it's a matter of if you want to embrace it or not. I like to think about this how you say in German, Gedankenspiel, this mental experiment
Mental
that
experience, yeah.
yeah, in which that you would, if you are a new company, if you are founding a new, say, a technology company, we are talking here basically about technology. Why would you, after this experience and after showing that working remote it's possible, why would you have an office in the first place? You know, if you think, if you want to do something that is scrappy, if you want to run lean, if you want to remove costs, like, you know, you have to rent a place, you have to get all the furniture, you have to get all the stuff, knowing that
You have to service it, you have to clean it, you have to
exactly.
provide beverage, coffee, whatever. Yeah.
I'm my
Security.
yes. So you have a bunch of extra costs that come on top, you know, because yes, you have a physical location. So if someone is starting a company today, it's for me really hard to wrap my head around the fact that someone would do that in a physical office. It's very hard. It's very hard for me to understand, at least in the initial stages, because during the last 3 years, we've seen that business run actually pretty well. I've heard of, I mean, people were under stress because of the whole situation of, you know, working remote, staring at a screen. People have a different way of doing time management because now they are at home and they are not leaving the office. For some people, the end of work was the moment I left my desk, and then I go home. And then obviously, if you stay home, you think, oh, I just can do another thing after dinner. You know, I can continue working in whatever I'm doing. But
Yeah.
if people have the discipline to say, you know what, I will stop working at 5 and I'm not looking at email afterwards, or I just look at email for 10 minutes afterwards, and so on, so on, so on.
Yeah.
Then there's no reason to fall in that spiral of overwork yourself. But again, going back to the idea of one startup in these current times, to me, I think it's a no-brainer to create a decentralized organization in which everyone works remote, everyone uses remote tools, all collaboration tools that we use today. Any productivity suite that you use today have the ability to have different users working on the same documents of collaboration. It's embedded in every single tool that we use today. So what is the reason to have tools that enable collaboration and then work side by side? So to me, it's a little bit of a conundrum trying to understand why doing that if you are starting from scratch. And then by extension, obviously, you might want to keep culture that you have. You want to have people bring together. But sometimes I'm struggling if it's because managers want to bring people together or organizations want to bring people together, or it's because of lack of trust. And sometimes I'm juggling between the two things because it's not quite clear.
So you mean lack of trust on what the employee will do if there is at home, if they are at home?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah,
if they
that's
will be working 8 hours or working only 6 hours or working whatever.
Yeah. I think for many organizations, and again, fortunately, it's not mine. It's not where I work, because we are. I mean, we have this very. I mean, it's native inside of the culture of the company. How, you know, that we work in a distributed manner. But I really believe in some organizations, leadership really feels that is losing control over the employees if they are not at the office. If they cannot physically see them, that they are staring at their window, at the displays, and doing stuff there. So I'm not really sure if that's part of it. No, I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously, people is not gonna sell it as, oh, I want to have an eye on you, but they're gonna say, no, we have to promote collaboration, and we have to create this sense of unity and bringing people together, and then that narrative is being constructed. But really, when I think people look at the bottom line and what happened during the last 3 years and see how productivity actually looked like in many organizations, I don't think there was really a significant hit in productivity because people were working remotely. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Um, mm, I think it is a very big part in the companies that doesn't want to adopt remote work. In that, like, some people and some managers think that they don't trust the employee to actually be working on that. But that's just, for me, if you ask me very personally, that's a very old-fashioned way of thinking. Like, if you have an employee, give them enough tasks to keep them busy the 8 hours of the day. That's it. And just measure how many tasks they completed. Like, they have to do some job in a certain amount of time. Just control that. It doesn't matter if it does it at 4 o'clock in the evening, or 9 a.m. in the morning. It doesn't matter. It's
Well,
finished by the time it needs to finish.
there are different modalities of work. I mean, there are companies, there are services, especially if you are a consultant, that probably you have some sort of time tracking software, and then you are being billed by the time that you're working on. But then again, you have the software installed in your device, right? And so you are billing
Yes.
those hours that you have in your device. So you're telling, okay, I'm working this. And then if the work that you are doing is detached of the amount of time, if your goal towards a delivery, not against the amount of time that you're working in getting there, then I also see no reason. But again, most of the reasons that I found is perhaps this lack of trust, and also is perhaps at the very end is a cultural issue. Because I recall I was listening to a podcast. There is this company, I forgot the name of the company, but they essentially, what they do is consulting in, so their entry point in organizations is information architecture. That's what they do. I think we talked about it a while ago. So they go in and they tell you, well, this is how you organize your wikis. This is how you organize your chat applications. This is the channels that you have. These are the protocols, the behaviors. You have to acknowledge that people put a message. You have until the end of the day to acknowledge it when you read something. This is the etiquette that you have. So they bring those things to the organization. This is how they began. And then they begin to consult on what tools you could use for the different processes that you have. So in a way, what they do is company digitalization, if you will. That's what they do. They do digitalization, and they get in through the whole information architecture story. And what I think is that for companies to really thrive doing remote work, they should hire someone like that. Now, if you don't want to put some thought and effort on how to run a team remotely, then hire someone, some consultant that is specialized in this kind of function, that knows how to organize all this. And then probably you're going to be successful. Because I think in many instances, what happens is that people have the tools, but they are not using them properly. Of course, there is the other psychological aspects. I feel very comfortable working alone because I'm really focused on my work. I think other people really need more that social contact. So I think also from individual to individual that might change. and probably it's different also depending on the different functions. So I guess for software developers or people who is working with technology big time, then probably makes sense that they can work a bit longer remotely. I can't imagine other functions like in sales or more relationship-based kind of functions that they would truly prefer to be face-to-face and have this human connection. So I think it depends also, and I think probably that's also an aspect that might be taken into consideration. But in the first line, I think it's a cultural issue.
Yeah, but there are some places where being on site is also very beneficial. Like I can mention a couple of it, like when you're doing a workshop, like you are brainstorming about a new topic, starting a new project, that doing a kickoff for a new topic, a new feature, a new part of the product or whatever, a new product, for instance. For that case, being on site, having a lot of time in the same room with whiteboards, having everybody heard without much distraction, like the kids calling out for lunch or whatever, that works a lot better on site.
Yeah,
And also the other one is learning. If you are in a seminar or whatever with a bunch of your colleagues, you're learning something new for the company or whatever, it works a lot better if you are on site.
That's true.
From my experience.
That's true. That's true, because I recall a couple of hackathons that we had remote, and definitely it's a different experience. You need to have a protocol. People need to be on camera, so we know that people is actually paying attention. It's like taking a remote exam. I don't know if you've had a remote exam, like a certification.
No,
and then
I hadn't.
Yeah, when you have them, you need to have your webcam on, and you can't do nothing. There's someone staring at you. So and then in these seminars, it's more or less the same thing. But then you have for instance, you have things like breakout rooms, which is pretty cool. You can really send people to breakout rooms and have interactions there.
Yeah.
And then there is another subject that I think is important. We were talking also offline, which is the hardware, and not only the software, but if people have the right technology to work remotely. For instance, now I have a teleprompter. You also have a similar setup, and I'm looking at the teleprompter, and I'm looking at us in the teleprompter, and that really helps with eye contact, which makes a huge difference when you are working remote
when you're on camera. Yeah.
When you are working remote a lot, because otherwise you see people disconnected. It's very strange, even if there are software solutions that grab your pupils and put it in the right place, but that it looks like a hack.
Looks weird.
It looks very weird. And it helps when you have the technology at hand, and obviously these things are not cheap. So to have a teleprompter and have the whole setup, and then have the right lighting for that, so there's a lot to it. And
microphone, a nice microphone, whatever.
Nice microphone so people can hear you properly. If you have a blurry, the quality of your camera is not good. You have like a 720p camera there is kind of blurry or even worse. All these things happens.
Your internet have to be also fast.
You need a good internet connection. So you need technology. It's like
yes.
And not everyone. Not everyone has access to it.
Go ahead.
So I can fully understand that many people feel uncomfortable going remote.
Yeah, and there is something that I always like. It's funny for me when companies actually try to save money in the hardware they buy for the employees, because I don't know what's the rationale behind, but they don't realize if you give a a slow laptop, that employee will be a slow one, will be a slow.
Mhm.
On the other, he will be frustrated.
It's true.
On a frustrated employee is not a productive employee. So
It's true. It's true. It's
yeah.
true. So that there is a
I-
strong, your tooling has to be good, and that applies for, I
yes,
think,
your tooling has to be good. It's always a puzzle in my head. Like, why do you want to save like 200 euros in a laptop and then lose like 10,000 euros in productivity for that employee? It just like escape my mind.
well, it's, you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, and but then the thing is that working remote implies that you go beyond the basics, like for instance, just a laptop. It implies that there is an extra.
I mean, you can. No, you can just work remote with a laptop. That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, but the experience that people have if they are seeing you uh, every single day remotely is not optimal. We were discussing when before we were starting the microphones. We were checking which microphone are you using. It makes a huge difference. I mean, the reason why we end up using these things is because, well, the quality of the sound is
The quality is different. Yeah.
it's different, and so you can convey your message in a different way. It gets closer to what happens in reality. It's hard. It's hard to influence people if the way that you present to them is not convincing, especially if right after work you go to YouTube and you see someone else with high quality software or high quality hardware and they have a really high quality presentation, and then you go back to work and everything looks kind of crappy. So you need to have you need to have like uniformity in experience. And again, I think it's especially important in certain roles. You might need to have to give a better experience.
Well, in that case, I have been lucky that in the last like more than 10 years, I've been using Mac hardware for work as well. So the audio is pretty good out of the box. The cameras are getting good right now. They weren't that good, but it was okay. So the quality out of the box of Mac laptop was pretty good. The audio was also pretty good. So that may be one aspect why I say no, you can get away with a laptop if you are working remote all the time. Of course, it's easier, as you were saying. I bought my new desk, a new monitor, a new audio console, new speakers, like studio speakers and stuff. So as to be comfortable, because I knew, okay, I'm gonna be like at least 1 year here all the time. Better be comfortable. Yeah. And definitely my home workplace is have more features than the one at work.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, that's
like the monitor is better, the camera is better. It's like, yeah, this is a lot better.
Yeah, so that's the other factor that I also see for remote work that many people struggle with. I struggle with, everyone struggle with, I think, is the this digital fatigue of being so long in front of a display, because that's also, I mean, I don't know really what's the science behind it, but the mere fact that you are staring at a light source instead of getting indirect light when you are interacting with someone, probably that doesn't help, in terms of your, your eyes hygiene, and how how you are at work, the time that you spend with the different light sources, and the quality of the displays, and the posture that you're getting, because obviously now you're going to spend more time sitting. So there are
Mm-hmm.
many considerations there also, health wise and everything. But again, I think it's a cultural thing. People, you know, that 1.5 hours that I save in commuting, well, I take part of that and now I use it to work out. So
Yeah, definitely.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of like the trade-off. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting thing, but I think it boils down to a cultural aspect, because the technology is simply there, and I think now is pervasive. Most tools that people use today have some sort of collaborative feature
Features. Yeah.
inside of it
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
assume that you can work remotely. And the truth of the matter is, if you are a creative person and you are creating media, for instance, well, in
Mm.
fact, people use a lot of outsourcing for that, and it's embedded in the workflows that people use. And that, software development is well suited for this distributed work. You use GitHub, or you use, you have cloud environments where you can run applications and everyone can monitor that. So there are many branches of work that lend themselves to remote work, because again, the software, the platforms that people use are ready for that. And I think many people, when leaders in business, if they want to streamline the business, they should really think how I can leverage, how can I make the best out of that. And even if you are in a location, now we can go in a little bit in the dark side of things, but if you are in a region in the world where looking after your employees and tracking what your employees are doing, well, definitely I think it's more efficient doing it digitally than really physically, because physically they might be just staring at the screen but doing nothing. But
Yeah.
digitally, you can even track what they're doing. You can even see how many keystrokes they did. Now, the question is that ethical or not? That's a different question. Is that legal where you are or not? That's a different question. But
That's a different question.
yeah, that's a different topic. But
Mm.
they are geographies where that's perfectly acceptable and is part of the business practices that people have. So
Yeah.
that's also another factor to consider, that you can actually, let me rephrase that in a more positive light. You can have better KPIs about the productivity of your employees.
Yeah. But there is also challenges. Like I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I was talking with this friend of mine from Canada, when he was saying that some of his friends who work for this big film studio,
Mm-hmm.
they have to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
On They actually work with big workstation with
Mm-hmm.
powerful machines, and so they work on site because they have to edit like 4K video and do visual effects in 4K video, whatever. So huge files. So they have to have like more than the internet have to be more than they had at home, and also the security that they have because they were working with unreleased films was challenging. Also getting that expensive power station to your place, who is paying the electricity bill? That is something that is still not clear. Like we are still paying, at least here in Germany, we are still paying the electricity bill for when we are working at home. It's on us. So that's still up in the air. And there's a couple of stuff that they are not legally in black and white, let's say, not so clear. It's still gray in gray areas. Like how many, there's not really a guidance, a guideline there, if you can be 100% remote, if you can be like 50% remote or only 60, what is allowed, what is not. Or right now it's like you like adjusted with your company depending what your company want. On for what I know, the companies are not being that clear. Like nobody's saying like you can be 100% remote, or not all the companies. I mean, there are companies that they were born native, like this company not going to mention the name, but they do social media management. That you can do stuff with your social media accounts on top of that. That company was born completely remote. You can work from wherever you want from the world. So, and they have like a couple of get-togethers a year. Like 1 week or 2 week, they get all together to Hawaii or some other place. On that work for them, they basically, if you apply for that company, you know that you're going to be working remote, and you know that you're going to be supported if you are traveling from Nicaragua to Brazil and working from there, which people also do.
No, that's also true. I was talking to a friend yesterday about there is this concept of I think it's workation is the name. Yeah, so we were talking about this workation or vacation, whatever the name is, work and vacation. I don't really much
Yeah.
know about it, but I've heard it's kind of a challenge, like a legal challenge, to understanding which geography or location you are, and you have to understand the regulations there, and then you're moving across boundaries. But there's definitely people doing it. There's people benefiting from that. I found that that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, if you have the freedom, I think that's an extra perk that you can offer your employees. If you are telling them, you can work technically from wherever you want, as long as it is not longer than 2 months, then more power to you. It's an extra perk. I think some people, not everyone, but some people will enjoy that freedom. And I don't see how that. I mean, again, I think it depends from industry to industry, from company to company, what they're doing. That might work or might not work. For me,
Yeah.
I think the image, the value that an office, or having a huge building with a huge uh, uh,
Entrance
entrance and
and
everything.
very
Yeah,
fancy.
probably that's not that valuable anymore. Probably that's not the value anymore. It's like this friend of mine. He sent me his a logo for his new office, and I think that's probably now more valuable in the digital world than the one that he is going to have in his physical office, because people is going to discover him. The first touch point in the funnel is going to be online. So
Yes.
probably you want to invest more there.
Yeah. I mean, for center businesses, it makes sense. Like if you go to a doctor office and it looks very scrappy, that's not the best, the best way to present a doctor, That's one thing. Or if you go to like, but I cannot care less from how fancy the office is. I care about the colleagues that are there.
Yeah,
On
the thing with the fancy office is that the fascination lasts only for a couple of months.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's what probably that's the reason why the success of things like WeWork. I mean, the success,
The
but
success.
I mean, but this idea of having an open space that people go
Oh,
there and they rent an office and people go and work there. This is like a kind of like hybrid, something in between solution. If you don't really want to fully commit to have an office, and still you want your team to be remote, but you want to have a place where you can meet them, then and then you see there is a business need for that, because now you have all these companies that offer this office space. I have a building is been built back here.
mm.
I'm thinking, probably a big chunk of it is going to be used in that way.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
probably.
yeah, because
I mean, there are companies that are remote and they give the employees an allowance of a couple of some hours a month to spend in this remote working or like co-working spaces.
mm,
So, like, if they
co-working.
don't, yeah, co-working. If they don't want to be at home all the time, they can go to the co-working space, rent a desk, on whatever. That kind of take me in a sideway about open space, open desk. How do you call, like, when you're everybody sitting together in the same room?
I think it's open space.
Open space,
Open space. Yeah.
open plan, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like that? Because I really don't like it.
That's a good question. I had that at a previous. I mean, I think most of the companies I've been working at now they have it. Uh, it's interesting. I cannot say you are more, in my experience. I'm not more productive there. Like
No, no, no.
if I'm looking at my output, me personally, I'm not more productive there. However, what is interesting is that you get to see how other people work. And you get to see how other people in different uh, levels at the company work, because there's no real hierarchy where you sit here and who sits there. So for me, that was kind of like a nice opportunity to see, oh, look how these guys work and look at how they everyday work looks like, and it gives you a little bit of confidence. So you can say, well, you know what, I can do also that work. I mean, it's not rocket scientist. So that is interesting. That in that regard, but that again, that could be a positive thing or a negative thing. And but in terms of productivity, I don't think it's better.
No, I don't think it's fair. It's too much distraction. It's actually it's I find it hard to concentrate in such environment. I mean, I have to work for a couple of companies that we had like open spaces and stuff like. But the sweet spot I find is a small room, like with 5 to 6 people sitting all together that you know already. So you know, like this person will come late to the office, and the other person will go early. I don't know. At some point, like, everybody knows that this person doesn't want to have noise. So if you have to have a meeting, you go outside. So after a couple of weeks, there is like a kind of a dynamic in there that it worked for most of the time. Otherwise, they were not sitting together. For instance, usually you are a team, you are working all together in the same project or whatever. I find that better. I don't know, the fascination for this open space kind of working environment, because definitely for me that hinders the productivity. I mean, it's cheaper to put a bunch of people in a big room that give like um, more space, like reduced space for other people, but I think it's not productive at all.
Yeah, I'm on a similar opinion on that. I really think that is not super optimal, but it's turned into fashion. I think
Yes.
it's a perk. I have the impression that it's being offered. It's a perk that I don't want, but it's being offered. And yeah, I mean, again, it has its advantages or disadvantages. It just depends. I mean, you can connect with people that otherwise you wouldn't connect, because there's not a fixed place, so you can connect with people and talk to them and networking. If you are really in the need of being highly productive, then probably that's not the right space. And again, I think there is also research about how people peak in productivity. This is like the research in terms of brainstorming. Like everyone knows brainstorming doesn't work. At least not the classic form of brainstorming. You have to let people brainstorm by themselves alone, come up with their own ideas. And then when the ideas are written, then you discuss them. But if you let people in an open discussion, like an open space, throw ideas in a meeting where everyone is discussing, but obviously those who are more shy or those who are like not extroverted characters are not going to contribute as much. Those who are more extroverted characters will contribute more, even if their ideas are not good per se, they just have a louder voice. So those are the risks of that. And obviously, then there is the other factor that I think is critical, is that people feel, oh, but I feel better. That's an argument that you say, well, I feel better. I have variety. But the thing is that success and productivity are detached from feeling good. They don't need to be the same thing, not necessarily. And so, yeah, you go home feeling better, but science proof that actually productivity is detached from that. Now, obviously, there's the question of stress and how you handle stress and long-term stress and that sort of thing, but that's a different conversation. So yeah, it's an interesting subject. There is even this meeting that I was also listening at. There is this meeting coach. He does productivity for companies. It goes in the same direction that this previous company we were discussing before, the information architecture story. And essentially, he is a leadership coach, and he was explaining how to prepare for meetings. And I found this idea very interesting. While I think it's a little bit extreme, I found it very interesting because they were saying, well, the way we do this is that when you have a meeting, we send an agenda for everyone to read. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And then everyone had to write a memo about the points they want to bring to the meeting. Everyone needs to write a memo. And 24 hours before the meeting, they have to share that memo with everyone. So everyone has access to that memo before the meeting. Otherwise, the meeting doesn't take place or that person does not come to the meeting.
Yes.
And then if after everyone read the memo and you wrote the memo, still there is a need for a meeting, then the meeting takes place a day after.
I see.
But everyone is on the same page. There's no room for improvisation. You go prepare. You already discussed the ideas with people. People have the possibility to add notes in your document. I mean, it's a collaboration thing. You I don't know, you send it as a Word document, and then people can add notes and comments to that document.
Yeah.
You might do it in a wiki as well. The thing is that when people end going to the meeting, they already know what is going to happen. So the level of alignment that is necessary is almost non-existent. It's like you don't really need to discuss a lot inside of the meeting. However, if the people who are in charge of organizing the meeting are the kind of characters that they need their ego being fed, then probably they are not going to root for this kind of process.
No, because it takes away
the personality aspect.
The central point in the meeting or whatever. Yeah.
Because then you read the arguments. Then you read their real arguments, and people have time to really write, and they go through, they do a spell check, and they have time to fix what they want to communicate, and then there is time for it. So I think, again, going back to the whole idea of why it works, why it doesn't work. Well, it's because you need the right culture and you need to leverage the technologies that you have. And
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that running meetings this way is less productive than throwing everyone in a meeting and having a shit show where the louder voice scream the most, and then uses charisma to convince people with ideas that sometimes do not make any sense. And I don't know how many meetings you've been that the guy who has the more charisma, or the gal that has the more charisma, is the one who wants the conversation just to see
Yeah, go ahead.
disaster later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I have been in meetings when I say, you know what, it's not worth my time to argue. So
So
just decide whatever you want. That's it.
again,
Yeah.
it's culture. It's a culture
Yeah.
thing. It's a
Yeah.
culture thing. It's just write all the stuff, send it to everyone.
On the other thing that you mentioned that I think is pretty important and people doesn't think about that very well, is like, set an agenda. If you don't set an agenda, at least set the topic right. Like, let's talk about this and this. If you don't set an agenda with points, just set the topic. Just don't call the thing like church think or let's talk or a meeting or whatever. Just put the subject of where you're going to talk in the email, in the actual invitation, if you're not setting an agenda.
I know some people that they are really very extreme with this, but I think it's a good thing. They say, I am not going to your meeting if you don't have an agenda and if you don't have expected outcomes in that agenda. If you don't have expected outcomes and you don't have an agenda and you don't have a reason why we are meeting,
then you don't need a meeting.
I'm not meeting with you.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about. And then you need a really strong structure that you say, well, what is going to be the outcome of this thing?
Yeah.
But again, it boils down.
The outcome can be really simple, like get you updated on this topic that you don't know nothing about it. Yeah. Because you were in the meeting last time. Or the outcome can be like, let's agree on how to move forward with this project. Like, we decide this and this. So, but it have to be a goal, basically. So it's not like, oh, let's talk, let's meet, let's what. No, that doesn't work.
That doesn't work. Yeah. And again, that's and I think those are the risks of not working remote, because when you work remote, you can easily put these structures in place.
Yeah.
But then makes the life of many people who leverage the social engineering part of human relationships a disadvantage. And again, I'm rooting for remote work. I'm just bringing arguments for why it's better. And I know I'm very biased about it. And I know that if people is going to criticize it, it's going to say, "Oh yeah, you're biased." Of course I am. I'm recognizing that. But the truth of the matter is that it happens really seldom that in an offline environment, people will go this length. It happens really seldom that in an offline environment, someone stands up and says, okay, I will take over the moderation of this meeting, and we are going to have this is the agenda, this is why we are meeting, these are going to be we have a section for the outcomes, we are going to leave 5 minutes before we finish this meeting. Super hard. It's super hard to do. Super hard to do. If you're brainstorming, it's almost impossible to brainstorm on your own. If you're in a remote meeting, people say,
well, that depends who is moderating, because usually if you do brainstorming, you do like silent brainstorming. At least what I know from design thinking, like being a design thinking coach, is like you do like around like 5 minutes silent brainstorming, everybody write all the ideas, and then more stuff happen like that. But that's it. Not everybody, like usually 90% of people, when they do, oh, let's brainstorm, they put a bunch of people in a room and they just shout at each other and try to fight for ideas, which is not the way to brainstorm at all.
Yeah, because this is a fight for ego. And I think,
exactly.
It's a fight for ego. It's like, my idea is better than yours. It just doesn't matter, or I want my idea to prevail. is not
Yeah.
that is the best idea. It's just the prevailing idea. It's a different discussion.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that regard, it's something that I think remote work gives you guidelines to or yeah to have a more disciplined work environment and also a meeting culture. It's
Yeah.
easier. It's
Yes.
easier. But
Yes.
again, there is not this feeling good sensation afterwards. No.
Yeah, it's like the social aspect. Like if I don't know, I remember when I was more time in the office, like finishing a on-site meeting, oh, let's grab a coffee or let's grab a cigarette or let's
Mm.
I don't know, walk around the office and visit this other person in the other side of the office or whatever. So that is not, when you're working remote, there's nothing like that. So that's why I am more for the hybrid. Uh, like a couple days in the office, a couple days remote. That will be my thing. The workation or whatever it's called, that definitely won't be for me. It's like if I am on vacation, I'm totally disconnected from
Yeah.
work. I don't care. So I don't read any emails or nothing. So I don't want to have like, oh, I want to go to this place, but I have a meeting at 3 o'clock. So I cannot go. So that's not for me.
Yeah, that's I mean, I've not considered it. I've honestly not considered it, even if it's on the plate. Um and yeah, I think I see definitely a lot of advantages for remote work, from culture. And again, if I were to start a company, or if I see someone starting a company, I would I would definitely ask or think really hard, why would I not be a remote company first? And then perhaps having some offices for some. I mean, I can understand that there are situations where you would like to have a physical location. Say for instance, you are in a B2B.
Customer meetings.
Yeah, like if
Customer
you have a
meetings.
B2B space, I think now it's more acceptable. Probably it's way more acceptable now today. But if you want a B2B meeting and you are inviting a big corporation, big enterprise as a customer, and you want to meet with them, well, probably makes sense to have them in a place that is, it's your office space for that. I get that part.
Yeah, you can always rent a conference room in a hotel, though.
Yeah,
So.
but it could, but some people say, well, you know what, we have a representative office because they want to play that game to impress the customer.
Yeah, I know.
That
Yeah.
that might be, and I can kind of understand that. Depends on the industry you are operating
Mm-hmm.
in. If you probably are in a conservative branch, would make
Yeah.
sense. It would make
Yeah.
sense to have something like that. I think the expectations of the customer is also that you have like a
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
then I get it. But I think also the tolerance for a distributed environment and remote work, it's much bigger today. And as you mentioned, you can just go to a hotel room or something, rent something fancy. And
Yeah.
the other thing that for me is that I noticed that, I mean, it works in remote work, but something that I've noticed that I connect very well with people. And I've also heard of other people that connect very well with other people, is to take walks with other people. Like you just go out and take a walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that when you have a remote conversation, it's a kind of like a confrontational thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you
You are
are,
face to face.
yeah, you're face to
Well, or
face. Yeah,
image to image.
it's image to image, and it's a different, it's like, even, all communication coaches, they tell you, if you're going to sit in a table, don't sit across the table, just, sit on the side, side by side, or
Yeah,
or
side by
around
side.
around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, makes sense. Yes, that's something that I have to acknowledge. It's better. I mean, still you can just go outside and take a walk and have someone on your headsets, and it's similar. It's not the same thing. It's similar, but there is something about really walking with someone side by side and doing stuff. However, I don't know. There are alternatives. You can you can go and play a video game together and have a conversation. I mean, I know that's super nerdy, but
That's super nerdy. Yeah, maybe that's a market right there, like a video game when you take a walk with your coworker.
newer generations
Never.
might probably do it in the future.
Probably, yeah. Probably they will do in Roblox or whatever the
Yeah,
next meta.
I see my kids and they go to Minecraft and they just walk in these worlds just to
Yes,
have a shot. You know,
yes,
they just meet for a shot in Minecraft and then they walk and walk and walk and do nothing. You know, they build something and then they break it, and then it's essentially the same thing. It's the same experience. And many of these kids, you know, the thing that to me is amazing is that some of them, they are just neighbors.
Mhm.
Still,
They're still, yeah,
they rather walk a mile in Minecraft
in Minecraft, walking
than
outside.
walking outside in the park. So
Well,
that might change. That might change.
yeah, yeah. With that dystopian thinking or idea, I think we can wrap.
Yeah, we can wrap this up.
Yeah, we can wrap this up. I think what's very interesting. I think it's a very hot topic. If I want to tell a couple of takeaways, is like, don't save money in the equipment, the hardware of your employees. You're making it unproductive first, unproductive, and second, you are making them frustrated. So you don't want that.
Make their life
If
easier.
you're, yeah, if your employee want to work remote, let them work remote. Just make sure that you have all the process in place that they can do their work remote.
Yeah.
As productive as they do in an office. Like, if you have this kind of managers that to make decisions, somebody have to brief them on site in one meeting to make a decision, then those managers are the problem. Like, that's the bottleneck in your work organization. That will be
Yeah.
my takeaways.
Yeah, I think again, to summarize, is a culture. It's a culture situation. Obviously, awareness of what your customer expects, but it's a culture thing. Is an information organizational information architecture topic, and it's also about using the technology that is available to its full extent and to take the, you know, to extract every single, to extract all value that you paid for, because at the end of the day you are paying for that technology, so extract all the value that it offers. You know, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Cool. Then that's a wrap. I guess we will hear us in our podcast like next week.
Yeah. So, then see you then.
Till then,
Bye bye.
see you then. Bye bye.